Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Wilmington BizTalk. Today, we'll be talking with Natalie English, who's president and CEO of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, and getting an update on some of the programs that the Chamber has been working on and has coming up next. Before we launch into our discussion this week, we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsors, Cape Fear Realtors.
Hello, I'm Ann Gardner, CEO of Cape Fear Realtors. Realtors support this program's efforts to connect our community in meaningful dialogue with actionable insights. Realtors are dedicated professionals who build strong, resilient communities and businesses. Work with someone you can trust. Work with a realtor. Learn more at capefear.realtor.
Hi, everyone. We are talking about the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce this week, and we're checking in with Natalie English, President and CEO, to go over a couple of things that they're working on and what they have on the horizon. As always, I'm your BizTalk host, Vicki Janowski, editor of the Greater Wilmington Business Journal. And as I was saying, as always, if you have questions that you want us to pass along, I'll keep an eye on the live Facebook feed in the next 20 minutes or so while we have time to check in with Natalie. So Natalie, thanks for joining us today. And just to launch right in, tell us a little bit about what's going on over in the chamber world.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Vicki. So we're about to manage what's going to feel like a circus some days here at the Chamber throughout the month of July. It's so exciting that the city and the county have decided to spend some of their American Recovery Program Act funds on business grants to continue the recovery from the pandemic. And so we at the Chamber will be bringing in some temporary employees so that we can collect all the applications and work through all of the processes of administering a $4.5 million grant program. We're excited about it. And like I said, though, it is going to feel like we are managing a circus around here for a while.
So let's talk a little bit more about those grants. So you said 4.5 million, and that comes from both the county and the city allocated part of their federal relief funds that they received. And so the deadline, though, is coming up next week, correct?
Correct. July 15th by 11:59, all the applications need to be in. And you can apply by going to WilmingtonChamber.org. And there's a button where you can click. It's really clear on our homepage where to click to fill out that application form.
Can you talk a little bit about which sectors we're focused on in order to be eligible for these grants? Like
Absolutely.
Specifically why those sectors?
Yeah, Vicki, it's the ones that were hardest hit last spring when everything shut down. So retail, hospitality, restaurant, bars, breweries, also childcare and other service industries that were impacted negatively by the pandemic. They'll have to prove that they were impacted. This is about employment. And so at-home businesses don't qualify. And so it's because it is about keeping people employed. And so we're excited about it. It's scaled also. So between 1 and 10 employees qualify for up to 10,000 based on need. Between 11 and 25, it's 25,000, and then 26 employees and above qualify for up to 50,000. And those are independent and locally owned businesses. That's very specific as well.
And on some of those uses, we should point out, just to distinguish it a little bit from the PPP national loans that were happening last year, besides the fact that this is a local grant program. So I understand that those grants can't be used for things such as rented utilities, which some people may have gotten federal money for last year, right? So there's some distinguishing about what you can actually use the money for.
Yes, and again, it really is about keeping people employed or getting more people. You know, some of the challenges we're hearing about from businesses are getting people to come back to work for whatever reasons. And so the money could be used as bonuses to get folks to accept, as signing bonuses, if you will, to cover salaries and expenses that have to do with employees.
Okay, so that's an interesting point, because we've had several stories and other biz talks earlier just talking about that staffing issue that's hitting a lot of different industries right now. How's the demand for applications been going so far? Have you checked on it lately?
I checked on it last night, and we were at close to 300. So let's put it a little bit in perspective. So last year, the county managed a grant program, and it was 10,000 per business that qualified. It was open. It wasn't targeted to any particular sectors. And so 130 businesses in New Hanover County received $10,000 grants. So because they only gave 1.3 million for the grant program. So we are significantly larger this time around with $4.5 million and with the scalability of the program. So we don't have any idea how many grants in each section yet. So we're trying to figure all of those things out. But last year they received 800 applications. There are some of our businesses that have already recovered, and I've had calls from people saying, you know, I'm in the sector, but I'm just not going to apply because we've recovered, we're making a lot of money, we feel good, we're going to leave this to those companies that are still struggling. And so I think that's, yeah, that's certainly a humanely kind thing to do. And yet some of those businesses that might be doing well this year still carried a big loss last year. And so some of this is an opportunity to recover some of those losses and again to re-employ people that may not have been able to come back to work yet.
Okay, and since you guys are administering the grants and the monies, what happens if the demand out exceeds that pot of money, that 4.5 million?
So if it does, it will be a complete lottery system. There's no, if you know me and you're my best friend, that doesn't mean you're going to get money. If you know an elected official at the city or the county, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a grant in this program. And that's very intentional so that we can assess those who need it. And then if there's more need, then we have funds available. It's a complete lottery system.
Have you heard from any other industries or sectors that we have locally asking if there's going to be anything similar for areas outside of this area, which again is hospitality, childcare centers? And service industry. And services, there you go.
Service industry, yeah. So hospitality, tourism, restaurant, retail kind of things. But so the only two concerns that have been mentioned to me have been, one, the issue of, but my business, I run my business out of my house and I was impacted, and that is, it's unfortunate, and I'm certainly trying to help those businesses find access to opportunities for support. The other has been nonprofits, and so I want to make sure that everybody realizes that the county also created a grant program for nonprofit organizations. That hasn't been rolled out yet, so we don't know when the applications will open or when they will close. Reminding folks that this application process is already open and it will close on July 15th at 11:59. But so those are the only two that I've heard anything from. I think that if you reflect on what happened last spring, Vicki, it makes a lot of sense. There were businesses required, mandated to shut down, not for a week or two. Those of us who were still able to do our work, whether it was selling an online product from our home office or running the Chamber of Commerce from your home office, those of us who were still able to work and to make a living should not have been impacted to the degree that those who were mandated to shut down and not serve any customers. Those businesses still need recovery assistance.
And just a couple other points on eligibility before we move on to some of the other programs you guys are working on. I guess we should explicitly say that this is the eligibility is for those businesses located in New Hanover County. Correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, since it came from the county and city of Wilmington's allocations of their funding. And then I believe they have to spend the money, looks like by August 30th of next year, if
Correct.
they get a grant.
Correct.
It's not a loan program like the PPPs were. But a grant. Anything else that are major? And again, you mentioned the details and the applications are on the chamber website, but anything else on just major eligibility criteria?
I can't think of anything else. There will be, proof of the need, that they'll have to share documentation that shows that they do need the amount, or that they were impacted at the amount that they will fill out on the application. And then there will be reporting requirements by each, the county and the city. They'll be audited by the federal government with regard to how these funds were spent. And so they will in turn need to receive information from those businesses who received the grants.
Okay, and we just posted the link to that, where it has some more additional information and the application itself if people are looking on the Facebook page. But again, just a reminder, if you have questions for Natalie, feel free to post those on there as well. But I wanted to shift gears too before, while we still have time, and talk about some direct funding that came to the chamber in the county's budget this year, the fiscal year that started July 1st. And that is to fund some economic development efforts and small business recruitment. Can you fill us in a little bit about what that was and what you guys are planning?
Sure, and the conversations have been happening since post-Florence, as I worked closely with the county's strategy office to talk about the ways we could better weather a future storm. And some of that is resilience of infrastructure, and I've been really, I've learned so much in the way we can do that better, the way we can respond better. The other challenge in post any kind of a disaster, because we found it again after the pandemic, is making sure that we're in touch with businesses. And everybody thinks Natalie just wants to reach chamber members. I do, but I already reach chamber members. It's all those businesses that are not chamber members, but their success still matters to our local economy. And so we talked after Florence and during pandemic shutdowns. Okay, how are we going to know who needs help and who doesn't? And we talked about the gap in our ecosystem for economic development. We could identify two, right? One is true business retention and expansion across the board. The chamber does it really well with our membership. Wilmington Downtown Inc. does it really well with downtown businesses. Wilmington Business Development does it really well with most of our larger employers in the region. But there's a gap in those smaller employers. Some of them may have issues or challenges, and they don't know who to call. Some of them may have ideas for expansion and don't even know the kinds of support that they can get from governmental or not-for-profit organizations in the community and in the state to make that expansion a success. And so in those conversations, the county suggested that we enter into a services agreement between the chamber and the county to offer business retention and expansion and attraction for small businesses. We've got the CIE and Genesis Block, again, doing phenomenal work in startup and investing in and helping find resources for startup businesses. And then you go to the other end and you've got Wilmington Downtown Inc. focused on downtown, and Wilmington Business Development focused on larger capital intensive projects, and they're all doing super job. But there's this gap. And so when companies are over a year or so old and they're starting to see consistent growth and they need support for growth or expansion, or one of our existing companies says, if we only had a vendor in town that did blank, we can go out and be a part of the team with Wilmington Downtown Inc. and Wilmington Business Development to attract those businesses. If they're in the small employer space and smaller capital investment, then the chamber, our new vice president, when we hire that person, will work with our partners to try to land more of those projects.
And I saw the budget document. So the chamber received $181,000, which just in comparison, because you mentioned some of those other economic development agencies. So Wilmington Downtown Inc. received about $75,000. Wilmington Business Development, which, as you said, is the primary economic development recruiter for those larger companies, received roughly about $209,000. So you guys are obviously more than Wilmington Downtown Inc. in the budget, but not as much as Wilmington Business Development, but not too far off from there. But I saw where I was going out within the budget documents was that this is for year one of a 3-year plan. Is the idea to kind of pilot this out and see how it goes for the next 3 years? Or do you see this as like kind of a long-term focus for the chamber?
I definitely see it as a long time focus for the chamber. In our vision to promote prosperity by cultivating business growth, it falls in line with our mission. And I see that that at least currently there isn't another organization in the space. So we will be investing in software that will help us in that, especially in the business retention and expansion piece of it, where the VP will be out visiting with employers in the county who are in that smaller space to assess all kinds of things. Sometimes it will illustrate a policy change that needs to happen, and then that naturally flows into our role as the business advocate, right? Sometimes I call it constituent work because I've been involved with elected officials for so long, but our constituents are businesses. And so if a business owner needs a stoplight to help with a shift change and there's nobody else to do that for them, then we're going to help advocate for the stoplight that will help them stay on track and continue doing their business well. You know, that's just one example of the kinds of constituent issues that can arise when you're actually asking businesses what they need. I have a pretty good, after 30 years of advocating on behalf of business, I have a pretty good idea what I need to be advocating on. But when it gets to specifics for individual business owners, I may not know what they're struggling with. And this is the only way to find out is to ask them. So we're really excited about having that opportunity.
And we mentioned the VP position a couple of times. Is that the first step? And can you talk a little bit about what that person will do once you hire them?
Sure. So that person will help us identify the right software package and to develop the strategy to achieve what we're trying to achieve, right? So it's about visiting businesses in our community and collecting that information for how we can respond better as a community, not just the chamber, but the entire community to those businesses. And then also to develop a strategy for what does attraction look like in this space in partnership with WBD and NCEDA and the EDPNC. So a lot of partner organizations there that will be involved. And so the person will build relationships with those organizations that are even deeper than the ones we already have with them.
Do you have kind of a target or a sweet spot of what you are picturing in terms of these business sizes that are mostly going to fall in what you're working with?
Yeah, it's 1 to 25 employees.
Okay. And also, you were talking earlier about that advocacy role, that public policy role. I'm kind of curious, what's after you help administer $4.5 million of grants and after you create your economic development, officially your economic development program, what's next on the chamber's public policy or advocacy arena? Like, what issues are you guys keeping track of right now?
Right now, it still has a lot to do with pandemic recovery. So the back to work issues, the talent attraction issues that are all businesses. It's not just hospitality and retail. Manufacturing is having a hard time attracting a workforce right now. And so we're working on issues at the state level and at the regional level to try to address those issues. We are also watching very closely and probably a top priority consistently is transportation infrastructure. We are a rapidly growing region. We know that the state's gas tax, which is the primary source for funding transportation infrastructure, is declining due to more efficient vehicles, all kinds of reasons, but it's declining. It's not enough to keep up with the state's infrastructure needs. So we're advocating for modernizing that system. We will be watching for bridge replacement opportunities. We're watching on the local level ways to develop better talent management pipelines for industry. So apprenticeships and other kinds of partnerships between business and industry and our educational institutions. And so I could keep talking for hours on what we're doing in advocacy, but there's a lot going on and we're trying to keep our fingers in all of it.
Any state legislative issues or budgetary issues that come to mind that are of immediate importance to you as they're debating that right now?
Absolutely. So I'm really pleased that the Senate budget and big shout out to Senator Michael Lee for representing our region so well in the state Senate. There is funding in the Senate budget for coastal storm damage mitigation. Beach renourishment is how we've always known that, but it's they created a fund for it a couple of years ago, but didn't put funding in the fund. We understand that there is an appropriation for that, which will help us with the state local match that comes to federal funds that we need. We also know that the film grant is being better funded. And as we've seen this year, especially in an increase in film opportunities back in Wilmington, we're excited about that. And so the grants will help attract even more of that. So that's looking really good. UNC Wilmington, Cape Fear Community College, we always support the funding that they need to continue to develop our current and future workforce. So the budget looks good. There are some tax cut proposals in the budget that we were just named this week as a state that with a good business tax climate. And you remember, when business is growing, that means jobs are growing, and you have to think about it that way. When we have businesses making investments in North Carolina and hiring people, we're putting more people to work.
Okay, and finally, just to wrap up, I understand, and we've covered it in the Business Journal. So the Convention and Visitors Bureau recently moved into the Chamber's existing offices down there on the Riverwalk, and kind of co-located there in the office building. So how has that been going? And have you guys been working on any joint programming together, or have plans to in the future?
How it's going is great. It's been a synergy that Kim Huffam and I have been talking about for years. And the opportunity presented itself as we were coming out of the pandemic, recognizing that we had available space, and then the move it could happen so easily while we were officially closed to the public, both of our offices. So they moved in mid-April, and we've spruced up the place. If you haven't been by, you should come by and check it out. We put in a new brick walkway between our building and the Riverwalk. And the Riverwalk wasn't traditionally an entrance that the Chamber encouraged use of during the day, because we were the business organization, not the welcome center. And now we're encouraging that traffic to come in from the Riverwalk. And so the place looks great. We are actually getting ready to construct walls downstairs so that we can accommodate the growth in staff that we're seeing. But it's all great. I think when you look to the future, certainly business advocacy is important for our tourism and hospitality industry, and we've been a partner there and will continue to be a partner. I don't know what it looks like when it comes to events, but I do believe, I've heard this cliche and I believe it to my core, that tourism can be the front door to economic development. And we've seen companies rise here based on people's desire to relocate here after they vacationed. And we should continue to capitalize on those opportunities. And so where the Chamber and the CVB can partner with WDI, WBD, Genesis Block, and the CIE to ensure that our front door, our community's front door, is consistent and sends the same message of welcome, then we'll be doing so much better for our community in a collaborative way.
All right, Natalie, thank you for covering just that range of topics for us, and just checking in a little bit about the different things you guys are working on. Appreciate your time. And
Thanks
everyone who's watching, thanks for joining us as well. And this will be also included if you didn't have a chance to catch the beginning. We'll have it in our daily email newsletter this afternoon. If you want to catch up on previous Biz Talks and topics, you can find those at WilmingtonBizTalk.com or on your favorite podcast streaming platform. Until next week, I want to wish you guys well and to stay safe out there with the winds. But thank you for joining us on today's Biz Talk.